Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. A happy Pongal Sankranti. Today is a special day across the world, across the country. In fact, Lori, I'm missing some names, but all of you have happy day today. Celebrate the festivals. Let's now welcome Dr. Abhinav Pandya, and we're going to take a look at how Pakistan is now beginning to work closely with Bangladesh, and this is basically to try and target India. I can't think of nobody else. Maybe there are other players too. To understand all this and more, let's welcome our guest of the day, Dr. Abhinav Pandya. Dr. Pandya, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel. How are you?
Namaskar, Shri. I'm good. How are you? And thank you very much for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be with you on this eminent
Thank you
platform.
so much, Abhinavji. I mean, we've not had a hangout probably in a year or so. So
Yes.
always welcome, and you have a very erudite view and perspective on all these things. So I yield the floor to you. You can start. Tell me when to start the deck, and I'll be happy to do that. And then you can take control and move
Sure.
through back.
Yeah. So I'll just say, I think in the beginning, I would like to give a brief background. Uh, well, with the Hasina's the ouster from Bangladesh, definitely. I mean, as we are all aware, India's problems and India's security concerns have increased multifold. And these days we are talking about the strengthening bonhomie between Bangladesh and Pakistan. But I guess I mean I'm not at all surprised with this. People and strategic experts of various hue and color, they are quite shocked, but I'm not at all surprised because if you remember, Muslim League was formed in Bangladesh in 1905 with prominent leaders like Aga Khan, Khaliquz Zaman, Nizamul Mulk, and Dhaka was the main center of this separatist Islamic movement or the Islamist identity, and it was a very crucial center. And even during the early this 1905 partition of Bengal, again this Islamic separatism was a crucial factor. Then, as we know, the Calcutta killings, the Direct Action Day, Muslim League was always very powerful in Bangladesh, in Bengal. And in fact, even Mr. Mujibur Rahman, who is generally hailed as a hero today in India, and for all the right or wrong reasons, was a close affiliate and associate of Surawardi, who was the main villain in the Calcutta killings and Direct Action Day, and who was leading the charge against the Hindus. So I think we should always keep this background in mind. And even during the 1971 War of Independence, the issues were between the Pakistani government, the dictator then Ayub Khan and Mujibur Rahman, but still elements like Jamaat-e-Islami, which were totally loyal to Pakistan, they were very active in Bangladesh and they played a crucial role in massacring Hindus. And even after the liberation of Bangladesh, that Pakistani lobby continued to exist, and they were the ones who assassinated Mujibur Rahman. They had a crucial and a very strong penetration in the Pakistani army. Later on, there was this dictatorship, and then the Bangladesh Nationalist Party by the Khalida Zia. She is again very closely affiliated with the Jamaat ideology and a very anti-India, very Islamist ideology. Her party and leaders they subscribe to. Besides that, Bangladesh, even during Hasina's time, had already become a hotbed of various Islamist and terrorist groups like Huji Bangladesh and Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh. So, with this background, I think we should approach this, this current, this ongoing bonhomie between Pakistan and Bangladesh. Yes, now we can start the slide deck.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Next slide, please. Next, yes. No. So after the Hasina's ouster, we see that there is an interim government in place, and basically there's this very intense persecution of the minorities in Bangladesh. We all know what's happening with the Hindu minority, with the Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, sorry, with the Ramakrishna Mission Society members. That their priests are being arrested and they're persecuted. Hindu homes are being vandalized, and in this entire anti-Hasina movement, Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islamic Chhatro Shivir, its students wing, they played a crucial role. And certainly, I mean, it goes without saying that the foreign elements, from the West and Pakistan's deep state had a very crucial role to play in orchestrating this massive, this regime change in Bangladesh. So now, once their favorable candidates are in power, and you have this very defunct candidate, Mr. Yunus, heading the interim government, who is no more than a lackey of various stakeholders, the Islamist elements are just going completely crazy and berserk on the streets, and we can see this massive persecution. Next slide, please. Uh, they are targeting minorities. I just mentioned Hindu minorities, and anti-India sentiments are on the rise. We see every day that the military veterans in Bangladesh, they are coming out in open rallies and shouting anti-India slogans. They are even talking about taking on some kind of a military adventure against India. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, but the most crucial part and the worrisome development is the this restoration of the Bangladesh Pakistan ties, at a very formal and official level. Well, unofficially, I mean, they always existed, and ISI maintained a very deep penetration in Bangladesh. But after this, coming back of this government, sorry, after Hasina's ouster, things are getting very serious. They have eased visa restrictions. I mean, and they have removed the security clearance requirement for Pakistani nationals, and instructions have been given to all the Bangladeshi missions across the world to facilitate and to make the visa process very easy and smooth for Pakistani nationals. Now, problem with this is that I mean, it makes it very easier for Pakistanis to park all kind of jihadis in Bangladesh, and just infiltrate them into the Indian frontier, the northeastern region of India, and just reset and settle them in the Siliguri corridor in the northeastern parts of India. Also, arrange some kind of cooperation and coordination with the insurgents in the northeastern India. Interestingly, in the Siliguri corridor, we already have a massive radicalization problem due to the overwhelming size of the Muslim population, and things are at a very critical stage. So, if they use this Bangladeshi channel to infiltrate Pakistani radicals and mujahids in India, it will get very serious. And we already have a history for that in the past, when Bangladeshi nationalist government, the party BNP, was in power from 91 to 95 and from 2000 to 2005. Bangladesh was used as a main conduit to smuggle weapons into India and to infiltrate terrorists into India. You will be surprised to know that all these big masterminds like Masood Azhar and Sajjad Afghani, they all entered India illegally through the Bangladesh route. They infiltrated India from the Bangladesh route. The Huji, Harkatul Jihadul Islami, originally the first terror group, which was started in 1979 to fight against the Soviets with the backing of the CIA and Pakistan's deep state ISI. It has its affiliate in Bangladesh. It's called Huji Bangladesh. Besides that, on at formal levels, we see many other kinds of, I mean, this restoration of ties between the two countries. The direct flights have been re-established. Maritime links are back in place, and as it's well known that Bangladesh has also eased import restrictions. Now they are importing sugar and all kinds of weaponry, munitions, and at a confidential level. Now, this is something which is not in the open domain, but well, I've come to know from various sources that I have that officer training exchange program has started between the Pakistani army and Bangladeshi army. Next slide, please.
Could I interrupt you just briefly? Yeah,
Sure.
let's get back to full screens, and we can go back to this point. A couple of things, Dr. Pandya. Before this actual ejection took place of Sheikh Hasina, it is believed that there was a very senior ISI officer who had embedded himself amongst people of Pakistani origin in Dhaka, and that 7 lakh Pakistanis are still waiting to be absorbed back into their country from Bangladesh. I don't know how true this is, but so Hasina must have known about all these things, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, as I mentioned, that ISI always maintained a very deep penetration in Bangladesh, and I gave you certain examples regarding, the infiltration of hardcore Jaish terrorists like this, Masood Azhar and Sajjad Afghani. So all this, cannot happen without the penetration of deep state. And when penetration happens at this level, it is not the case that the authorities are totally unaware about it. Definitely they knew. And I'm not I mean Hasina must have had her own limitations, because such organizations like ISI and all, if they have a penetration, then they also maintain such clout in the institutions, in the agencies, in the army, in the state institutions also. Like if you remember, then there was this Jaish fellow Bilal Mondal was arrested in Bangladesh, and the entire Jaish module, which was responsible for the IC-814 hijacking, had its roots in Bangladesh. When Tahabur Rana and David Coleman Headley, when they were interrogated, they honored the entire Lashkar-e-Taiba cell in Bangladesh, which was planning to assassinate several diplomats, and bomb and explode bombs outside the Indian and US missions. And Lashkar and Jaish were running cells in the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar and Chittagong. Now, all these things cannot happen without some kind of a tacit support coming from the institutions. And I'm quite sure Hasina must have been aware, and also, she must have had her own limitations also, or possibly she might have, come to some sort of a compromise, because in politics you have all sorts of compromises. And if you look at Bangladesh's internal dynamics, then this Mujibur Rahman's party, Awami League, is seen more as an India affiliated party, and Hasina's main source of strength was the backing coming from India. But then, yes, again, she had her major competition, political challenge, and this coming from the internal actors like Jamaat Islami and all. So yes, I agree. I mean, this Pakistan always maintained a crucial presence in Bangladesh. Even for that
Thank
matter,
you. And
2016, this famous ISIS attack in the Gulshan area of Bangladesh. If you remember, all the perpetrators were coming from a very high class societies, elite society of Bangladesh. And they attacked, staged this attack in a very posh elite area of Bangladesh. So even at the societal level, at the grassroots level, the religious radicalization has always been there, and it has some really deep roots. I mean, just because Hasina was ruling the country, we cannot conclude that the regime or the state and society were entirely secular in Bangladesh. And I guess
thank you so
that's where our policymakers, particularly the Indian agencies, failed very miserably to understand the situation and take appropriate measures.
Do you think India took its foot off of the pedal once she came back in January, or was it even from before that?
Well, I think that India's approach, right from the beginning, has been very, ad hoc, and it lacked nuances. I mean, it was just about, just because they just tried to cultivate, better ties with Hasina. And even during the Hasina regime, there was a lot of infiltration taking place, and a lot of smuggling was being done. And I think, all that illegal infiltration which was happening, immigration which was happening from Bangladesh, there was completely, I mean, no one paid any attention to that, because they didn't want to rupture the ties with Hasina. But besides that, I mean, it was mostly your bureaucrats, who were handling typical, with a very bureaucratic approach, handling this whole Bangladeshi issue. Now, see, the problem is that if you don't have a long-term vision, some kind of a strategic security vision for problems and challenges like Bangladesh, which is right next to you, like in your backyard, in your neighbor, you are bound to face this problem. And leave aside Bangladesh, what did we do in Bengal? I mean, we could not handle our Bengal situation. I mean, how can we even imagine to do things in Bangladesh? And after this Hasina's ouster happened, India hardly had any option. I mean, the entire narrative, the popular sentiment was against India. What could India do? I mean, you require massive courage, you require that gumption, and you require those capabilities. I think we don't have those capabilities right now. China is definitely at the crossroads with India. We already have problems going on in the north. On the Pakistani side, despite all the lofty claims made by this government, I don't think there is any major change in the terrorism scenario in Kashmir. You can see that a lot of attacks are still happening. And when it comes to the conventional war, I think the what happened during the Pulwama episode, this downing of the Indian fighter plane, showed us something, a picture of the future war. Because Indian, particularly in the conventional war, we have just 41 31 32 squadrons. And at present, to tackle these 2.5 front challenge, we need at least 56 to 60 squadrons. We don't have that. And even the fleet that we have in the in this air force, that is very old and outmoded. And with the coming of Bangladesh into this anti-India foray, now we have a 3.5 front war. So I don't think India can take on I mean, is in a position to mount any massive, I would say, security mission or security initiative against Bangladesh. Besides that, your internal challenges, the entire country is sitting on a ticking time bomb. Every city, every locality, you are having this massive Hindu Muslim polarization and communal riots, and it's just increasing with every passing day. So internal security is also on the boil. So I mean, India has its own major problems. The Western deep state is, but trying to create a lot of sabotage. Uh, so, yes,
Let's get back to the PowerPoint. Thank you so much for the clarification. Let's get back to the PowerPoint. Thank you. Go ahead.
yes. So
We're done with this
another,
one. Next one, please. Yeah.
yeah, next slide. Next slide.
Yeah.
So now, with this, all this, I already mentioned, how ISI set up its base, but now the most worrying part is that with the coming, of, with this, resurgence of this very Islamist government in Bangladesh, all these, terrorist outfits will have a heyday in Bangladesh, and we can see that some of the hardcore firebrand terrorist masterminds have already been set free. For example, this Ansarullah Bangla chief, Jashimuddin Rahmani, has been released. And Ansarullah Bangla is an affiliate of Al Qaeda in Indian subcontinent. And this Jashimuddin Rahmani has openly, openly given a call for the liberation of Kashmir, liberation of Khalistan, and also the Northeast. He has urged Mamta Banerjee, just to declare independence. Not very surprising though. And I guess in the recent past, several Ansarullah Bangla cadres have been arrested in Assam and in West Bengal. Even in Kerala, there were few cadres who were arrested. Besides that, Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh will be a very crucial terror group which already has links with the northeastern insurgents. They have played a role in training them. Even Huji Bangladesh has its cells in Assam and West Bengal, and definitely with growing Pakistan's clout in Bangladesh, we would see more activity and penetration from groups like Lashkar and Jaish. So definitely, it's going to be a major problem. And even transnational terror groups like ISKP and AQIS are eyeing upon Bangladesh as a major, crucial center. Because when ISIS was in its heydays, like in 2015-16, Stanford University, I think it came out with one report in which in South Asia, the Bangladesh region was one of the nodal points of the ISIS recruitment and activities. So I think this is going to be a major challenge for India's national security. And it's
Okay.
something
So,
which
so
is.
now we have given. Sorry, go ahead. I thought your turn. Go ahead.
I see. I mean, see, it'll be a very comprehensive challenge because see, Bengal is already in a very tough and delicate situation. You have a huge presence of Bangladeshi radical and totally Islamized Muslim immigrants in Bangladesh and Assam, and in the government, the state government also in West Bengal. Is very sympathetic to these Islamist elements and also compromised on many counts, and we have seen that happening in the past. Despite tremendous efforts by the central agencies and the central government, nothing concrete has been achieved as far as the radical Islamist challenge in West Bengal is concerned. So I think with this, a major change in Bangladesh, such elements will get emboldened in West Bengal, and it is indeed going to be a massive security challenge for India on internal security as well as the external security.
Okay, Abhinav, so this
One
is
more,
the problem
just
statement in the sense this is where things stand today. Let's take a look at some of the ways in which India can counter that. Next slide, please.
yes,
Go
one
ahead.
more thing is that I also wanted to highlight was that this Bay of Bengal region is a rich source of hydrocarbons. Basically, back in 1970s and 80s, I mean, when India did not have the sufficient, I mean, the required technology, there was the stock of, at least a discussion of utilizing these hydrocarbon reserves, because the reserves are in such huge quantities that it can make India a net exporter instead of hydrocarbons rather than an importer. Currently, we have major energy dependence and on the West Asia. So certain elements in the West, they would not like it to happen, and as Hasina rightly pointed out before her ouster, that that some big country in the West wanted to use a particular island to establish its military, this air force base over there, and also they're trying to create a Christian state out of the three countries in that region. So all these elements are basically, I mean, all these activities and these measures have a very strong strategic angle to them, and that is definitely related to these this huge reserves of hydrocarbons. Now, coming to how India can tackle this problem. Well, I have repeatedly said that India's the biggest security challenge comes not from China, not from Pakistan, but from the radical Islam. See, we have to understand this, because with China, we have a bilateral boundary problem. Okay, effectively. I mean, I'm not talking about the bigger geopolitical issues. That certainly, I mean, I don't even count India in that main battleground, because at a global geopolitical level, China is at war with the US. The Cold War is between the China and the US. With India, we have this major boundary problem, which is the bilateral issue. And in that also, I mean, it's not that China poses any existential threat to India, like to convert the people here, or demolish your religious structures, change your culture, or just occupy territories in the Indian hinterland. Pakistan is at worst is the manifestation of idea of radical Islam, and Bangladesh again is in the throes of radical Islam. So now, when we think of tackling these challenges like Bangladesh and Pakistan, I think we have to strike at the root cause of the problem, and that is radical Islam. For that, we need a very comprehensive approach, at least a 20-year roadmap, and that has to be a very intense multi-pronged strategy, which should include very tough measures, as well as propaganda measures, information war, and everything. On the You'll have to tighten the vigil on the borders with the Bangladesh particularly, and also find out, scrutinize the illegal immigrants who are in the country, and take some real tough measures, even if required, maybe some kind of a military intervention in Bangladesh, because if things are going completely out of hand and India is just maintaining a very disturbing silence, it is just going to embolden all the jihadis in Bangladesh. So I guess we have to show some spine, and maybe another liberation war in Bangladesh. So India has to. I mean, this is a topic which certainly requires a very deep level thinking. So I'm just giving a very brief, I would say, pointers here, what all options can be explored. But ma'am, I mean, if we come down to the serious thinking, then this is a problem which should focus on some immediate solutions, medium term solutions, and longer term solutions. At least a 20 to 25-year roadmap, and that has to include various elements: military elements, narrative elements, diplomatic elements. Yeah.
Now, you said that India needs to de-radicalize itself internally also. Now, I'm hearing that many mosques are now armed with stones, Molotov cocktails, or acid bottles, and sticks, and knives, and whatever, swords, and whatever. So this is now. How bad is this problem? Is it 90% of the mosques, or is it 10% of the mosques? Where does it look like, Dr. Abhinav?
Well, no. As far as if the figures are involved, I will not be able to mention the precise figures, whether it's 90%, 80%. But yes, as per my assessment, the problem is very serious. It's very serious, and it's very deep rooted. I mean, unofficial sources, from various quarters have informed me that I mean, these elements are armed to the teeth. And you are absolutely right when you mentioned that, this, the stones are there, Molotov cocktails are there. And so this is a major problem. And in any event of a communal riot, you will see the manifestation, you will see the unraveling of, this accumulation of weaponry and all. But and one more thing that, I would like to mention here is that, this whole idea of de-radicalization, I mean, I guess we need to deconstruct that also. I mean, we need to find out which all countries have implemented a successful de-radicalization model. Well, Saudis tried it, and they had a very limited success. Pakistan failed in that. Even the prevent strategy in UK to de-radicalize, it failed. I guess the problem, I mean, here we need to stop being politically correct and take the problem head on. Whether de-radicalization is even possible. See, if people, as you mentioned rightly, that, if they are armed with Molotov cocktails and stones and all, and if you are going and preaching them that please don't do this, I mean, we'll give you all kinds of sops, jobs, and incentives. Then, if for the time being or for some tactical gains, if they stop the violence for some time, then that's not de-radicalization. That's like, just, you are appeasing them, you are giving into their pressures, succumbing to their pressures. So I think this is a problem which, in its most initial stage, needs some very tough action and, very some hard solution in the beginning. People who are willing to, completely violate your constitution and, just overthrow your government with these, weapons, I guess they need to be dealt with very firmly. And the lesson needs to be taught that, that such elements and, such antisocial behavior, totalitarian, predatory behavior will be met with massive retaliation.
Yeah, I'll let you continue because there's still a fair amount of coverage to be done. Go ahead.
Yeah. In the slides, yeah? I think we're done.
No, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, the currently this whole issue of, I mean, this polarization, the Hindu-Muslim fault lines, this is getting more and more severe, and in the future this will be a major challenge. Now, see, over the last 12, 13 years, I mean, post 2014, definitely there is an increased awareness on the issues pertaining to India's national security. I certainly give a major credit to the Modi government for that. Abrogation of Article 375, 370, and NIA activities, and this crackdown on terror funding infrastructure and all. But then, yes, I mean, even on the propaganda front, even in televised news channels and everything, in media also, there we see a very increased awareness on this problem coming from the radical Islam. But then, see, I feel that, this is, we have not done much about the solution part. It seems that, I mean, the awareness has increased. It has consolidated the Muslim community. Because I'm not saying all of them, but at least a good number of them, a large portion of them, perceive the government policies as anti-Muslim. Now, this is the perceived element. Whether they are anti-Muslim or not, that's again a question of debate, because I don't think that any major damage or anything the government has done has actually, hindered the interest of the Muslim community. For example, this entire CA NRC, it was not brought to deprive the Indian Muslims of their citizenship. It was just about the immigration. So I guess this whole notion of the government being anti-Muslim is very perceptional. But this wrong perception has led to the consolidation of Muslims in India along a very dangerous jihadist trends. And also the activities in the Middle East are also consolidating them. India's friendship with Israel, Israel's retaliation against the terror attacks or the Hamas terror attacks, and all the deaths and bloodshed that is unfolding in the Middle East has also consolidated the Indian Muslims, because they perceive that India is friends with Israel and India is the part of global anti-Muslim, the trio with the US and Israel. Besides that, I mean, in India, on the other side, among the majority community, it's just more about the perception that the threat is existing, and it's more for the political purposes. Definitely in the elections, this communal issue and this fear mongering works, and it brings BJP government into the power. And you can see successes in many elections because people have no option. Congress is in a very, very bad shape. It has now, Congress is perceived more as an anti-national party, for all the right or wrong reasons. That's besides the main focus of this session, so we're not getting into that. But even even about BJP, I have heard things from the core Hindutva, like the people who are I wouldn't use the word radical Hindus, but very seriously, passionate about these, or even let's say the radical, like extreme Hindus. They're not
There
very
is no
happy.
such thing as extreme Hindu,
Yes,
Dr. Abhinav
I mean,
Pandya. It's just
I
that
say that.
you're asserting yourself as a Hindu. That's not wrong.
Yes, no, I'm
I
using the
mean,
word.
I I
I
don't know.
see.
I don't see anybody as
No,
extreme
you are
here, man.
absolutely right.
Go
I
ahead.
agree with you. But see, for example, some people, like those who are saying that, well, the government is implementing some kind of a Hindutva agenda. For them, I want to make it clear that those people who are perceived by a certain segment as extremist, they are not extremist. I agree with that. But those who are perceived by this, they are totally disappointed with the existing government, and they are saying that, I mean, this is more like the using of this whole security narrative just for the political ends. So this is the major problem. I think, I mean, we are going to see the unfolding of these communal riots or maybe terror attacks in the future, if some sort of a major initiative on the Waqf board issue, or if something like that comes up in the future, then I mean, this will be a dangerous scenario for India. What I want to say is that, see, I mean, making it more okay, fine. Politicizing is fine. Political parties, they have to get votes. They have to get votes from their constituency. But then some real effective work has to be done. I mean, on what are we doing about PFI? PFI still continues to maintain deep cells in Kashmir. If you see, Jamaat-e-Islami is the very radical Islamist organization. It's the engine of the jihadi terrorism in Kashmir. In the recent elections, Jamaat-e-Islami cadres, the former Jamaat cadres stood for the elections. And people tell me that, I mean, the Jamaat-e-Islami is an expert group, and using this election narrative and this opportunity to stand in the mainstream elections, they are spreading their network, and they are again refurbishing their sources of finance and radicalizing people. So I think at some level there is some lack of understanding on the part of government. I'm not saying that their intent is bad. Intent, definitely, whatever they're saying, I mean, that they want to deal with this problem, they may be fine. Okay, but then, at some level we need a much deep rooted thinking, and we need to realize that this problem is much bigger than petty politicking.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abhinav Pandya. And certainly a lot of concerns here. See, I'm not saying this out of thin air. I'm traveling in India and I noticed some things such as a new mosque being built with no Muslim population around it. Now, take what I said before and now. There is no Muslim population there, but the mosque now gets suddenly filled with Molotov cocktails, swords and stones and what have you. And these are strategically built along main highways. So even if you want to go and control a riot somewhere, these things will come in your way. These are available today, Dr. Abhinav Pandya. So that Waqf thing has to go.
But
It's a
see,
very
my question is that, see,
arbitrary
you
act.
you and I know about it, but my question is to the government: what are they doing about it? Do they have a strategy? Do they have a plan? Do they even want to listen to the experts? That I don't think that they want to. I mean, this entire security setup in the government is again being run by a very conventional, traditional set of police officers and bureaucrats. I mean, we and they have no novelty. Previously, they were serving some other masters. Now they are serving a different master. So it's a very status quoist approach. Here I
Well,
can tell you what
we have
in
asked the
my city.
questions. Yes.
I'll give you one example. So there was one illegal mosque which was coming up, and I raised the matter in front of a very prominent, chief of a nationalist group. Okay, and the fellow tells me that, well, I mean, we don't like to get into this, little dirty groundwork. We work at the level of raising the consciousness and cultural, awakening. So that's the answer.
No, you got to work from both sides. I mean, you do it from the top, you also need to do it from the bottom because you
Do it
see
from,
this
but
thing coming up right in
unfortunately,
front of your eyes.
no, but just one more thing that I want to highlight. See, the problem is that here it's often said that it has to come from the society. Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's very difficult, as far as the non-Muslim societies are concerned. See, among the Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Christians, and the other non-Muslim faiths, there are no internal structures like Jamaat-e-Islami or PFI, these structures which are coming up in Pakistan, like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Jamaat-e-Islami, etc. We must understand that they are not just the creation of the government; they also have a very strong base in the society. They are getting ready recruits from the social milieu in which they are growing. And incidentally, here the state will have to intervene, because among the non-Muslims, like the Christians, okay, Christians are facing a lot of atrocities in Egypt, and in various other Muslim countries. In Bangladesh also, the Buddhists are facing atrocities. But the system is such that in these religious minorities and the groups, it's I mean, it's very challenging, to raise an infrastructure like that. But on the other side, the this Islamic radical Islamist groups, there is an international infrastructure. You have Al Qaeda, you have ISKP. So here, expecting it to come from the people, it is very challenging. The state has to intervene. The state has plethora of intelligence agencies. The state has a whole army of paramilitary forces, military forces, huge army of police forces, intelligence agencies, state level intelligence agencies, and then this huge tax revenue which is going to the state. So I think the state has to intervene. And Indian state is not a weak state. India claims to be an emerging world power, so I guess Indian state needs to, need to think about these things.
Well, a lot of questions out here. I've actually given solutions in my book, Who Painted My Future Bright. There is a way to fix this problem. And those of you who want to know, you can read my book and you'll say, well, I'm trying to sell my book, whatever. See, it's not, the point is not to just show the problems and walk away. The problem, the point is to also show some solution. There are ways to do this thing. It is possible to fix this thing. Because I'll tell you one problem, Dr. Abhinav. If the majority communities in various areas start organizing themselves to start taking these things head on, so stick for stick, sword for sword, knife for knife, bullet for bullet, what happens? That is the beginning of a civil war. At that point of time, the government cannot step in and impose law and order. I mean, you have a law and order mandate that is supposed to do this. Yet you see again and again state governments misusing it, abusing it. And the center is not coming down on them. It is not just Article 356. There are many ways to take action. And this is where I see a huge disappointment in this government. I'll tell you a simple thing. Anyway, let's go. It's okay. I can rant on for on. You wanted to say something? Go ahead.
So I'll just give you one example. So that whole Nupur Sharma incident took place, and one fellow, I think, he wrote something after that. This Kanhaiya Lal, he was murdered by two chaps. They were local fellows. They had not gone to Pakistani training camps, or they were not the Jaish or Lashkar cadres. Okay, but they staged that brutal murder without caring for their future, their family. Okay, and after that, what? I mean, they're facing a judicial trial. I think one of the suspect got released on bail recently, and after that, after that episode, there's a huge sense of fear, among all the free mind thinking, liberal-minded people, and the message is loud and clear. They will not utter a single word, against on these issues in the future, because the people they want to come out, but either they need some assurance from the government. I mean, you look at countries' laws right now. See, I have worked on terrorism. I've worked in Jammu and Kashmir, and I face threats from all kinds of terror groups. Okay, when I had to apply for my arms license, I cannot tell you how the local bureaucrats, how they treated me. They treated me as if I'm some kind of plebeian going to some mighty East India Company officer and begging for my security. I have written 3 books on terrorism, okay, and they're not some local like rubbish cut copy paste work. They're very crucial books, internationally recognized work, okay? And because of that, I was facing those threats. So here, and even if you carry a weapon, there is an incident where you have to use it. The local laws, suppose, let's say, some kind of there's a communal riot or something, okay, and in self-defense, if you fire a weapon, okay, I can assure you the police will, put you behind the bars, and you will be running from post to pillar, running to, doing rounds of these local courts and the judiciary for years, for decades. Who's going to take a stand? So ultimately, I guess the state needs to show some responsibility, and people are not just here to sit and pay taxes, and just grease the palms of those who are sitting in power.
So a lot of stuff needs to be done. I'm hoping that somebody in PMO watches it. They usually do. And look, time to
They
act
will
is
watch
now.
it.
I mean,
They will watch it and they'll start hating me. They must already be hating me.
no. It's beyond that. We are trying to be concerned citizens, and we are trying to point out like this. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. He says Christians are facing a serious problem and harassment by Hindutva, BJP, and RSS government in India. Well, if you paint outside the lines, bro, you are going to get some pushback. If you don't do that, then you're not going to get pushback. I'm being very reasonable here. Law is the same for everybody. Just because you vote as a bank, that doesn't mean that you have extra constitutional powers. You don't have, horns on your head. Understand
Well, I mean,
this. This
see,
thing
if
has
someone
gone
is
for too long.
complaining,
Yes. Yeah.
if someone is complaining that Christians are facing harassment in India, he should look at the treatment of Christians in Pakistan or Bangladesh. Well, Almighty saves them. Okay, that's all I can say.
Now, these are all people who feel special because a certain party has given them, some extra, whatever you want to think about. And they are also illegally constructing a lot of churches where Christians don't live. It's the same story again and again. Um, anyway, there are problems. Law and order is not doing its job. I'm sorry. And I've said this thing, having seen it for myself. And some states like Kerala, in some areas, oh my God, don't even get me started. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Abhinav Pandya. Of course, you've lived in Kashmir. He's probably, more future Kashmirs in the making in India. Unless you do
Yeah.
something, it has to be consistent. Everybody will welcome consistency. Consistency, don't listen to the local people. The law has to be the law. It's the same for everybody. Yeah, you wanted to say something.
See, you need to change the mindset here. The problem is that unless from this government we expected, not a routine political kind of governance, but some kind of a massive revolutionary changes, overhauling in the system, in the structure. So you in 21st century, you have major challenges, and you're trying to address them with an 18th, 19th century outmoded, rundown bureaucratic setup. It doesn't work like that. You look at the youngsters here. I was, here. So the one fellow kills Kanhaiya Kumar without thinking anything about his family or the future. That's one example of a youngster. You look at, see, I appreciate his confidence. I appreciate his guts. He did not do it for money. He did not do it for any selfish motive. On the other side, you have one fellow who is physically very weak, and then he sees one local SP, collector, or local police inspector, and he starts crawling in front of him, and he just prays to God that I get this government service. He's wasting 10, 12, 15 odd years writing stupid government service examinations, and spoiling his youth, no future vision, nothing. Besides that, the worst damage that happens to him with this begging mentality is on his self-confidence. If you have a youth which doesn't have courage, which acts like cowards, which doesn't have guts, and which is always begging for the government jobs, you don't have a future for that race, for that country. I'm
Thank you so
talking
much,
about
Dr.
very
Pandya.
fundamental
Viewers,
issues. See, I'm not talking here as an academic researcher on terrorism. I'm, dealing with some very fundamental issues. I think we should start talking about them. From 2014 to 2023, if you see in the country, right now, people are leaving. I talk to many of my corporate friends who are working in Bangalore, and all of them, like most of the, they're like all from Hindu middle class, upper class families, and they just want to leave the country and get PR in either in Australia, Canada, just escape. Reasons? They'll say
the
two
problems
reasons.
are coming there too. Dr.
Yeah.
Pandya, problems are coming there too.
I,
It's not so easy.
but
Go ahead. Go
this
ahead.
is this is a it has a precedent. We ran from Kashmir. We ran from various other places. So again, this is happening now. This running business, and if you ask them the reasons, two reasons. They say that, well, first, too much taxation, tax terrorism. Secondly, no dignity for a common citizen. The country exists only for the top class civil servants and bureaucrats, And third, the major security problem, the radicalization, this communal terrorism problem, Islamist problem in India. So these three problems, and they say that we are scared for the future of our children. We don't trust the state. We don't think that they can come and save us in the times of need. So better go to some other country. Environment, clean air, that's definitely urban infrastructure. Certainly, they are the major concerns. But the major three are these, which I just mentioned. But even in the West, things are not that rosy as they look. They are getting into a very bad phase.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, sir. And please, viewers, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar. Namaskar.